Hi, this is Tiara Alicea. Welcome to the Wonderverse podcast, the space to dive into the wonders of the universe manifested through energy and consciousness. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 2. We are back. Thank you for coming back. Before I get into the conversation today, I first just want to say a few things. First of all, thank you to everyone who showed support, showed love towards the release, towards episode 1, to me. I am just so grateful and thankful for every single person who took the time out to send a message, tell me in person, even just tune into it, watch, listen, share, comment, like. All of those things really do not go unnoticed at all. And I just want to say thank you. I'm so grateful for that. And as a content creator, I think I speak for a lot of us out there when I say that all of those things really add to our motivation, inspiration, and energy, and just continuing to put out content on a regular basis and staying with it. It really does add to our motivation and inspiration to continue to fulfilling our purpose within this. And it's just, it all feels so good. None of it goes unnoticed whatsoever. So thank you. And I'm just really excited for all of the new souls that we're going to touch out there with this podcast. And I invite you guys all in to be part of this Wonderverse, part of this family. I'm very happy and excited to be here with all of you and to be in this space. I guess, in a sense, words cannot express the feelings and emotions that I experience every single time I sit down to film and to deliver content. So 1,000,000 and 1,000,000,000 thank yous, and sending so much gratitude and love to all of you. Thank you. Second, I hope that you guys are appreciating this little shift in ambiance that we sort of curated today. And by we, I do mean my partner and I, who works very closely with me in creating a lot of my content pieces and creating the Wonderverse. So for those of you who are viewing this on the visual form of this podcast, I hope you guys like all of this. I decided that this is the vibe I think I kind of want to sit in for a little while, although I am someone who likes to change things up. I was reviewing my first podcast ever, because that was the first video I had ever done. And I record and film in a room where in the daytime, there's a lot of natural light that comes in here. And although I love it, I just don't think it's the best for the way I like to film. Because I'll be honest, I am someone who is not the most tech savvy when it comes to all of this stuff. That's why I have my partner that helps me. I am someone who just likes to press record, turn the camera on, and just sit and pump out the content. I'm not really thinking about white balance and all of those other things that go into it. That's just not really my thing. That's not what I tend to focus on when it comes to me delivering my content. I'm focused on the value and things I'm delivering through it that way. So, we kind of had to experiment a little bit with this shift in setup, but I'm really, really liking it. I'm really enjoying it. I think I am going to keep this for a while. And part of having this set up for me is going to be filming and recording at night now, which I think is going to be a lot more natural for me, to be honest. I am a creature of the night. For some reason, I feel like I get a lot of inspiration and I have a lot of energy at night. I am also a night owl, so I stay up very late sometimes, and I think this just works for me. So, hope you guys like it. And for those of you who just simply like tuning into the audio version of this, probably not much has changed, but it's all good. You might notice a little bit of a subtle shift in my energy because I am filming at night, but there are times where I am a little bit more chill. I'm more reserved. I'm just really flowy and vibey. And then there are other times where I'm a lot more outgoing, a lot more energetic, and I have much more of an output of energy. And it really is just, it comes down to how I'm feeling that day. I have a lot of layers to me. Like a lot of you, I have a multi-dimensional personality. I guess that's what I'll call it. And all of that is really just going to come with me sitting down and doing this and delivering with my authentic self. And let me know if this resonates with any of you. Like, when do you feel the most yourself? Because for me, I feel the most myself when I'm either completely alone, like I am right now, or when I'm around, obviously, people that are close to me. 3 people I have in mind actually right now are my very best friends who I spent a lot of time with last weekend because my one friend moved back into the States from Spain. She actually was living in Spain for like 8 months. I have very cool friends and I want to get them on the podcast so bad. Whenever they let me, whenever they allow me to literally just bring a mic into the room when we're all talking, I'm going to do it. But I noticed that I'm most myself when I'm around them, as well as being alone and also like with my partner and a few other people, of course. But when I observe myself in that setting with them, there are times where I'm really energetic and outgoing and a little bit loud and goofy and all of that. And then there are times like we were last weekend where we were just all sharing the same space and so many trippy synchronicities were happening in reference to a clock that was in the room with us, which was wild. But we were all sort of more chill and reserved and just really saving space for each other to express in whatever way we needed to at the time. And also just having really like deep intellectual conversations. A lot of our conversations are very healing. So I feel like when I'm with them, it's one of the best representations of who I am. And it's a very strong reflection of the best qualities of myself. I feel like I view in these women. So I know I'm going off on a little tangent already, and I shouldn't be talking about this because I have a whole nother agenda planned. But I just wanted to show love to my 3 best friends who I very much wish to have on the podcast, hopefully in season 2. Maybe I can convince them by then. So I set an intention for every single episode and almost every single piece of content that I do because I very strongly believe in the power of intention. And the intention behind this episode was very inspired by the number 2, since this is the second episode. And I think that sometimes is really overlooked. And I'll expand on that because I know this probably sounds a lot simpler than what it actually is. What I mean by that is we sometimes overlook the fact that we currently live on a plane of existence where duality exists. We live in a world where duality exists. And so I wanted to sit in that frequency and in that energy and just really break down and expand on what does that mean for us? How can we know it? How can we understand it? Because when we know something and when we understand something, we can embody it, we can embrace it and become it. And realize that that thing is already inherent within us, so we can use it to create our realities. Okay? And so much of that exists in the manifestation of our conscious and subconscious mind. That is also dual in nature. So once we understand the duality of the conscious and the subconscious mind, we can more easily manifest our desires. So I'm going to shift a little bit. I'm going to get real comfortable. We're going to sit in this together, and I'm going to preface this with a little bit of information so that we can really grasp the concept of this, okay? And so that you essentially can understand it through your own lens. Because I am simply a vessel to deliver this message, to deliver really any message and conversation that we have here, any piece of content that I put out in this sphere is really just a manifestation of me being a vessel. A lot of this information is learned, yes, but I also have come to the realization that a lot of these messages and things that I speak on and deliver are channeled messages from my higher self, from God, from Source, this higher power that I don't want to externalize because I believe I am. Therefore, I am simply manifesting on this plane as just a vessel for it. So in any given conversation that we have, take what resonates with you. And if something doesn't, that's totally fine and okay, because, and I'm saying all this because I was listening back to episode 1, and there were a few times where I'm like, why did I say that? Or I thought, ooh, I hope that doesn't offend anyone, because it may have come out the way I didn't intend it to. And of course, I might expand on a few of those things that were said in the future to kind of clear things up. But sometimes there are certain things that people need to hear at that moment. And that thing might be solely for you. That thing may not be for you. And that's totally okay. And that's totally fine. But whatever time and space you're in, listening to these, I really find that a lot of my conversations will be some of those things that you can go back to 3 months, 6 months, a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, a decade from now, and still get something out of it. It's almost like rereading a book that you loved. I really do feel that a lot of my channeled information has that quality to it. And this is actually something that I'm sort of newly discovering about myself, because I'm learning and I'm tapping into and unblocking so many of my intuitive abilities. And I do invite you guys to be on that journey with me, of course. And I will open up about that and talk about that more in upcoming, pieces of content or upcoming episodes here on the podcast. But with all that being said, just know that how you understand and apply anything that you decide to consume, it's all up to you. You can filter it out. You can take something and apply it to your life. You could not apply it to your life. All of that is completely up to you, because you're a human being. You have free will and you have free choice. So with the numerology of the number 2, numerology is simply the study of numbers, and numbers are a huge part of our understanding and the way we perceive the world in different parts of our world, because there is an inherent value and meaning and frequency that we have given to numbers 1 through 9 and so on. And if you think about the things that we heavily correlate to the number 2, of course, duality, opposites, balancing two things, creating harmony, paradoxes, finding truths in the untruths, or something being contradictory, or the concept of everything is and isn't. Partnerships, whether that be romantic, lovers, monogamy, or, friendships between you and one other individual person, business partnerships, all of these things in our mind have correlations to the value of two, or the number two, or the meaning of two. And when we tap into it in an astrological point of view, in astrology, the number two corresponds to the moon. And the moon reflects the sun's light, the sun being number one. So within all of that, we think reflection as in a mirror. And what is a mirror? A mirror is simply you being seen within something else, or an object being seen within something else. And that can go for anything in life. And I think it's Neville Goddard who talks a lot about this sort of philosophy of everything in your reality and everything you're experiencing is simply just you pushed out. Everybody is simply a reflection of you and your qualities and your perception of yourself. They're all projections of you. A lot of times we find ourselves in relationships with partners who mirror us in a certain way. So all of that has to do with the number two and mirroring and reflecting. And when it comes to the astrological signs, the zodiac signs, we oftentimes correlate the number two with the second house, or the second zodiac sign being the sign of Taurus. But then there are also dual signs, also oftentimes mutable signs, but dual signs meaning the archetype that represents that zodiac sign has to do with something being multiplied with the number two. So, for example, Gemini being the twins, Pisces being the two fish, those are dual signs. So you can see it shows up in that as well. And if you study astrology, these are really good places to look in someone's chart to see where duality oftentimes exists for them, where they find themselves, coming into contact with mirrors or reflections of their own self. Oftentimes, great areas of study in your own astrological chart to sort of break down and see where you encounter duality in your own life. You pretty much encounter it everywhere, but I would say more oftentimes than not. So it is said that there is a universal law of polarity, or a principle of polarity. And this is pretty much the home of the concepts and philosophies of yin and yang, positive and negative, masculine and feminine, cause and effect, fate and free will, and of course, the conscious and subconscious. And what I would like you to keep in mind with all of these opposites or all of these forms of duality is that they're all simply degrees of the same thing. When I first started to tap into and tune into this concept, I feel like I best understood it when I was reading the Kybalion. And the Kybalion is about the 7 Hermetic teachings, and I'll go ahead and link it down below for you. I feel like it's a really easy read. It's a really cool read if you just want to understand some of the foundational teachings of our universe. But in the book, the way it is explained is when you're thinking about it in terms of temperature, right? You have hot and you have cold. But there is not really an objective truth to exactly at what point the temperature is considered hot and at what point a temperature is considered cold. They are both simply degrees. Hot and cold are simply degrees of the same thing, which is temperature. I may have a subjective truth to what hot and cold is to me, but another person may have a completely different subjective truth to what hot and cold is to them. So objectively, there is no hot and cold. They are simply degrees of the same thing. So when you think about all of the other things I mentioned before, yin yang, positive, negative, masculine, feminine, cause and effect, fate and free will, and the conscious and subconscious, these are all the same thing, split into two things for us to understand on our level of consciousness. Sit with that if you need to, pause this if you need to, and journal out or draw pictures, create visuals for yourself of how all of those things are the same thing. What are the commonalities between all of these things? What makes all of these things the same? Because we already know what makes them different, but what makes them the same? And then once we know and realize and understand that, we then get into the fact that on this plane of existence and in our level of consciousness right now as human beings, multidimensional beings having a human experience, we need one in order to understand the other. Okay, so in terms of polarity, we need one pole in order to understand and perceive the other pole. So we wouldn't know what hot was if there was never cold. We wouldn't understand what happiness was if there was never sadness. We wouldn't understand love if there was never hate. We wouldn't understand pain if there was never pleasure. Imagine if you only ever experienced happiness. At some point, there's this point of neutrality where, it almost probably just feels numb, or like you feel no other emotion. But once you experience sadness and then you experience happiness, happiness probably feels so much better because you already know what sadness feels like. And this is actually something that really honestly got me through some of my darkest times, mentally and emotionally. I heard this saying like a long time ago, or maybe I read the concept somewhere. I don't exactly remember when or where, but I think it really hit when I was going through not the best time. And what's actually reminding me of this now is one of the people that I really, really look up to in this space, and also one of the people that have made a huge, huge impact on my self-development and my awareness and growth and my spiritual journey as a whole. And I would honestly freak out if she were to ever watch or listen to this because I really actually do hope to meet her one day. And just say thank you and express all of that, of course. But a lot of you guys may already know who this is, watch, view, listen to, all of that. Her name is Tiara Alicea. I'm actually wearing her amulet right now. I always do. I never, ever, ever take this off. And she tweeted something very much related to this the other day. And I was feeling actually really low that day. I was feeling really sad. And just, to be honest, throughout this content creation journey, I kind of talked about it a little bit in my first episode. It hasn't always been the easiest journey for me. And I was having one of those days the other day where I was wondering if all of the struggle I have gone through and have been going through was worth it. And I was having a moment where I kind of thought about giving up. And I've had a lot of those moments, not gonna lie. And I think that's really real for a lot of content creators out here these days, like trying to make it. So I was having one of those low days and I had a nice little emotional release session. And I had, a little bit of a talk through with myself, and then my partner was also talking to me. And I saw this tweet immediately after that emotional release. And by emotional release, I mean I was full on crying. I had a breakdown, okay? And I don't know exactly what she said verbatim in her tweet, but essentially, it was along the lines of the fact that the capacity in which you're experiencing darkness right now is the capacity in which you can experience light. You have the capacity to experience just as much light as you experience darkness. And this goes along with another, huge universal law and concept that I understand. The fact that there's the law of rhythm. When the pendulum swings one way, it has to swing back in the equal and opposite way. So, if you're someone who is going through a dark time, or, you're going through something mental or emotional, and it's just really difficult for you, you're going through a lot of challenges right now, I hear you and I see you, and just know, okay, because this has been something that has always gotten me through those times. I can always see the light at the end of the tunnel, and it is one of the foundational beliefs that keeps me pushing through, and that keeps me in this energy of I will never give up. Never. And I'm unapologetic about that. It's the fact that if you think about it, with this law of rhythm and with polarity and this capacity to experience these things, if you desire a certain level of happiness, of success, and of love, you had to have experienced at some point the opposite energy and frequency to that of what you desire. So if you really desire, I know for myself, I'm just going to put myself out there and be vulnerable with you guys for a second. And my 8th house moon is probably shuddering. She is shaking in her boots right now. But I promised myself I was going to be me on these podcasts, and I'm going to be authentic, and I'm going to keep it real with y'all, and real and raw, and just, I'll be vulnerable at times where I choose to be and where I believe it's appropriate. But I desire a lot of happiness and success and freedom and just love, pure love for life. And I do experience that at times, for sure, because I know that in order to experience that, I need to already be in that frequency, of course. But, as I expressed to you guys, I had a low day. We have our low days sometimes. But I know that in order for me to be able to experience that level, there are going to be times where I already have experienced the complete opposite of those things. So there were times where I was immensely unhappy, super, super unhappy, and completely dissatisfied with myself and with life. But I know that is simply just my pendulum swinging to the left, but it's just going to come right back as hard and probably as fast, with as much force, to the right side. So just wanted to put that out there, because I know that someone out there needed to hear that, because when I was channeling this earlier and I was writing out my notes in my script, I felt all those emotions come back. And I feel you guys. I'm there with you sometimes, and I know it feels really crappy. And I think that a lot of people in this space, not even in just this space, let's be honest, in the social media world altogether, we do not share our lows. We don't show the lows. We don't talk about the lows, because sometimes people don't want to see them, of course. We're not trying to put that type of energy out there, but I think that we have to remember that nobody's life is perfect. Nobody just experiences highs and great things all the time. That's not real. So our lives have this law of rhythm. Our lives have this pendulum and these ebbs and flows, and we just simply got to go with it and find meaning sometimes in the darker moments or the lower moments. right, y'all, we're back. We had a quick intermission because we had a bit of technical difficulties. There may be a little bit of stock footage in the visual version of this podcast because I'm filming with a new camera. And, we just got to learn new stuff, but it's all good. So now that we have a really good grasp on all of that with the understandings that we have now, in the future, I would love to break down the duality and the concepts within the topics that I had stated previously, that being like yin and yang, positive and negative, masculine, feminine, cause and effect, fate and free will, because I think those are all like really amazing topics to dive into when you're talking about polarity and what that all means for us and the way we are living life. But for today, we are really going to focus on the conscious and the subconscious mind and how both help us manifest. Because I think a lot of us, when we're on our spiritual journey, or even if you're someone who, maybe you don't identify as someone who is a spiritual person, maybe you just like tapping into and using the law of attraction or the law of assumption, we give a lot of credit to the subconscious mind. We know and we have this understanding now that our subconscious creates the bulk of our life experience. It creates our reality. And what we sometimes overlook is the fact that our conscious mind, although it's responsible for a small percentage of what we experience, it's still really significant. It has a lot of significance to it because the conscious mind is responsible for those pivotal moments and those realizations and epiphanies and ahas and those moments where you're just like super focused and really present and really soaking in and understanding new concepts and learning new things and growing and developing into the new version of yourself that you want to be. The conscious mind is responsible for all of that. You are doing all of that while you are conscious and awake. The subconscious is really only ever sort of accessed when we're either falling asleep or waking up, or when we are completely asleep. So the conscious mind is the catalyst, and it's responsible for that moment, that realization and that turning point that creates a new story. And then the subconscious then takes that and multiplies it, and it creates with it. A lot of us may have heard or maybe even learned this concept through genders, let's just say, through masculine and feminine energy. Okay, so let's just say, figuratively speaking, we are observing a monogamous heterosexual relationship between a man and a woman. And it is said that a woman is going to multiply and create with whatever the man provides her, okay, whatever that thing is. So, for example, if a man provides food, whether that be back in ancient times, they were hunting, the women would nourish by cooking the food. Or if a man provides a house, the woman makes it a home. When a man ejaculates and gives his seed to a woman, the woman creates a child and another human being. So if you're thinking about it in terms of conscious and subconscious, conscious is more masculine energy and subconscious is more feminine energy. So whatever the conscious mind gives the subconscious mind, it's going to take, it's going to create and multiply. So then that raises the question, do we need two things to manifest? In this circumstance, kind of. We do need both, right? So as people who manifest and as people who use the law of attraction and the law of assumption, we really need to bring the conscious mind back into the picture of manifesting. Let's give credit where credit is due, essentially, because we give so much credit to the subconscious, creating the majority of our life experiences, which is all still good and true. But the conscious mind really has a lot of significance to why that is happening. So in other words, the duality and paradox of objectivity and subjectivity live within the conscious and subconscious, respectively. So to break this down to you even further, because when I first heard this concept, I said, whoa, you gotta run that back. Like, this is really life-changing information, okay? When you're thinking objectivity or objective, I would like you to think about the word observe, okay? Objective, observe. And that is really just you taking yourself out of an equation and becoming the observer. You're no longer the subject in the equation. You are the observer observing the subject, okay? And most oftentimes, this should be an observation through non-judgment and neutrality in order to completely solely just be objective. It's almost coming from a very factual point of view. But we are human beings. So as humans, we have different thoughts, beliefs, emotions, feelings, values, interests, morals, etc. So then that leaves us to subjectivity. So subject. When you're thinking subject, I want you to think submissive. Okay, submitting. So think about the prefaces of both of those things. Objective, objectivity, observe, observing. Subjective, subject, subjectivity, submitting, submissive. Just keep those words in mind whenever you're analyzing this concept, okay? So as the subject, you're putting yourself back into the equation, and you are now the subject within this experience, okay? So you have a completely different point of view. And as the subject, you are influenced by the observer if the observer is not neutral or non-judgmental, okay? And this is a proven fact, you guys. This is science. This is quantum physics. It's physics, okay? So in quantum physics, there is something called the observer effect. And the observer effect states exactly what I just said. It states that you can change the outcome of something simply by observing it. Okay? Slow motion that real quick, run that back. You can change something simply by observing it. I'm not making this up. Look it up. Quantum physics, observer effect. As the subject, you are always being influenced by the observer, and especially on this plane of existence as human beings with different thoughts, feelings, beliefs, emotions, etc. So, as the subject or the subconscious submitting to this, your subconscious is always submitting. The subconscious is literally just always saying yes to whatever you tell it, to whatever story you're putting in front of it. The subconscious is submissive and it's saying yes. The way I believe it's explained in another really good book, if you want to tap into this a little bit more, The Power of the Subconscious Mind. Again, I'll link it down below. It talks about how, if you're thinking about it in terms of a ship, the conscious is that person at the very top, looking and observing its external world and its circumstances and what's coming ahead. And they are directing the people below deck And, everybody down there that can't really see what's going on, they're telling them exactly where to go. Those people down there are the subconscious. In other words, it's almost like your subconscious is driving a car blindfolded and your conscious is telling it where to go. So in knowing this, we can now take a step back and observe what we are constantly affirming to ourselves on a day-to-day basis. Are you waking up and first thing you're thinking or telling yourself is, "Oh, I do not want to get up today. I'm not looking forward to it. I'm not looking forward to anything that today needs to offer. I am going to dread going into work today miserably. This is not going to be fun." You know what your subconscious mind is saying? Yep, and what about it? Here we are. That's exactly what's going on. But instead, if you're waking up and first thing you're thinking and saying to yourself is, "I'm so excited to experience what today has to offer me. I know that there are so many opportunities for abundance and happiness and fun and joy that are going to manifest for me today. And I'm so excited to see what the outcomes of these things are. I absolutely love my life. I'm so happy and grateful to be experiencing another day on earth." If your conscious mind is telling your subconscious that as soon as you wake up, subconscious is like, "Hell yeah, let's go. I'm ready." So you're literally doing this, boom, first thing waking up. You're changing the outcome by being the observer. But what we want to do is be a conscious observer. And that is where the conscious mind's responsibility is. And that's where it thrives if you're someone who is going to shift into being more of a conscious observer. Because while we can more easily and quickly access the subconscious through the hypnagogic and hypnopompic state, those states being that of which when we're falling asleep and waking up, and then also when you're asleep, of course, the door to the subconscious mind is wide open. You can get directly through it, basically. So whatever affirmations and messages and stories you want to shift or transform for yourself, that is an amazing state to do it in because it's going straight to your subconscious mind. There is no conscious to filter through anything, and this is actually one of my favorite ways to reprogram myself and manifest my desires, because I know that I can really easily tap into my subconscious mind in those states. But then also, when you're meditating and in times where you're in a state of really, really deep relaxation, even hypnosis, because what's happening is your brain waves are shifting from being conscious and awake and in a beta brainwave state into that of an alpha brainwave state, then theta, and then maybe into really, really deep delta if you get there. Those deeper brainwave states are the gateway to really reprogramming your subconscious mind, and you can do that really easily through those. So, if you guys want to play around with it, I highly recommend, maybe listening to some really great affirmations, or if you want to do even a self-hypnosis. Self-hypnosis and meditations are absolutely transformative. Obviously, I highly recommend my meditations because that's the way I intended for them to be used. But you can really do this in whatever way. You can just simply use binaural beats at a certain frequency if you want to, align with a certain vibration, abundance, joy, love, whatever. You can use it to heal yourself. People are using sound frequencies to heal themselves now. Okay, these are things that are like proven facts. Like, look them up. Okay, I ain't making this up. So, of course, like, those are all really amazing ways to manifest, and that's why so many people do it, because they know that the subconscious is the gateway to manifesting your desires. However, Are we forgetting the fact that our conscious mind made the choice to do that? Like, hello? If we were never conscious of that in the first place, if we were never conscious of that of what we want to desire or that of what we would like to transform about ourselves, would we even get there? Like, really sit with yourself and like reflect and ask yourself that question, because I really do think this is the key to transforming yourself, your identity, your personality, thoughts, beliefs, because when you are making conscious choices and when there's a complete shift and when there's a complete change in the choices that you're making with your free will, there's a change in who you are on a subconscious level. There's a change in your reality, and that's the key to consciously manifesting. You are in your beta brainwave state for the majority of your waking state throughout your day. And every single time we make a shift in the choices that we make because we are choosing to be a more conscious version of ourselves, that's all our conscious mind. And our subconscious is just behind that, submitting to whatever new choices that we're making, to whatever, way we want to newly self-identify, to whatever new personality we want to embrace for ourselves, because we already know Dr. Joe Dispenza says our personality creates our personal reality. So if you are actively, with your free will in your beta brainwave state, choosing, let's say, to be a more fun person, more goofy, more outgoing, you're taking on a new personality, which is therefore creating a new personal reality. So for the next 24 to 48 hours, I really, really encourage you to sit with that and observe as soon as you wake up. Like, what is my conscious mind? As soon as you shift into that beta brainwave state and you're awake, what is your conscious mind saying first thing when you wake up? And if it's not something that's serving your desires and what you want to manifest and putting you in alignment with your best version of yourself or the timeline that you want to be on, consciously change it. Make that free will choice to change it, because your subconscious is just in the back seat saying, all right, let's go. I'm here with you. We're there. That's it. And even a really cool thing you could do is, set your alarm for first thing when you wake up, do that, and then check in with yourself 2 hours later. What's your conscious mind saying? What's your conscious mind believing? What's your conscious mind thinking? 2 hours later, same thing, check in with yourself. And do that for, 24 to 48 hours and you'll be doing the same thing that you would essentially be doing, with self-hypnosis, with meditation, with, in your hypnagogic and your hypnopompic brainwave states. You would essentially be doing the same thing, just in your waking state. So can you imagine if you're not only doing that in those subconscious brainwave states, but then you're also adding to it your conscious brainwave states? There's no doubt you'll have a shift in reality. There's absolutely no doubt. You'll feel like you're on an entirely different timeline, which I also will say I do believe is very on point with the astrological aspects that are happening right now for us currently in May 2022. And another point I really want to emphasize is, if we are not consciously manifesting and consciously making a change to the day-to-day choices that we make, a lot of us are sort of operating from that subconscious belief system and that subconscious story. And if you think about, my metaphor earlier about how the subconscious people are the people on the ship that are below deck or on the deck and can't really see what's going on ahead of them, or the person that is driving with their blindfold on. The conscious mind, if it's not giving any direction and it's just on autopilot, the subconscious is just going to be like, all right, I'm just going to go the way I know how to go. You know, I know that this way is safe. I already know which way I'm going if I go this way. And that's where we fall into, you know, maybe those not so great and negative thoughts, beliefs, emotions, and behavioral patterns that are not serving us any good. So we got to bring the conscious mind back into the equation, because the conscious mind is a filter. So in the way that this is, I feel the best way to understand it is, we already know that from the age of from when we're born until the age of 7, it's said that we are operating from purely a subconscious state. Okay, and that's why when we think about this time in our lives, it seems so dreamlike. A lot of us can't even really remember it, right? Because we were in a purely subconscious state. Our brain waves, from the time we are born up until the age of 7 and beyond, are moving from delta to theta to alpha. And then once we are 7 or beyond that age, we then have a shift into beta brainwave state, which is us being more conscious of our reality and ourselves, our external world, and our internal world too, eventually. So if you think about it, if the conscious mind is our filter, whatever things are affirmed to us or are experienced by us, or whatever's going on in our external world from the age of, let's say, 1 to 7, or from when we're born to 7 years of age, our subconscious is just saying, okay, that's my story. I'm taking that on as truth. And can you imagine all of the things that were not objectively true that we subscribe to and we took on as our story as young people? You know, let's just say, figuratively speaking, in a hypothetical situation, there's a child that was really, really energetic and could not focus, and, you know, was really outgoing and really couldn't stay still in a classroom, in a school system that I'm not the biggest fan of. We'll get there when we get there one day, I guess. If a parent or teacher or friend or peer or whoever negatively affirmed to this child that was between the age of 1 to 7, you'll never amount to anything. You'll never be successful, because you just don't know how to focus and sit still and be quiet and behave. Hello, our subconscious is like, oh, okay, got it, yes. And then imagine that young person or that child then, you know, beyond the age of 7 is now conscious, but they still have this subconscious story that they'll never be successful if they're expressive and they're energetic. In order to be successful, they have to minimize themselves. They have to be quiet. They have to behave the way everyone else around them wants them to behave. How many people pleasers does that create? Whoo, let me tell you, a lot. It's like, if only maybe that child may have been a couple years older, let's say beyond the age of 7, and their beta brainwave states kick in and their conscious mind is developed. And then they can use that as a filter. That conscious mind is our filter. And somebody says that same exact thing to them, and they're like, you know what? That is not objectively true. I don't take that on as my story. I don't take that on as my belief. I know that my energy, and this way that I can just walk into a space and command the energy in the room, that's going to make me successful. I know it is, because it's part of who I am. It's me expressing myself in my joyous state, in my happiest state, in the highest version of myself. And it's me being unapologetic and knowing that other people's negative emotional reaction towards me when I am in a joyous state and doing things out of love has nothing to do with me. That has everything to do with them, and the way they perceive me is simply a reflection of the way that they see themselves. And that's it. So it's like we really have to thank the fact that our conscious mind is there filtering things through for us every single day. It has the power to say, yes, I take this on as my thought, my belief, my emotion, or no, I don't take that on, especially when it's other people's projections. But from the age of 1 to 7, we don't have that filter. And subconscious is just being submissive and saying okay to everything. Yes, okay. Yep. Got it. That's me. That's my reality. That's my experience. That's my truth. So now we use our conscious mind to be the filter, to be the catalyst, to be whatever it needs to be in order to lead and support our subconscious, so that our subconscious can just create and create good things. So say thank you to your conscious and subconscious minds. They are there to serve you. We just have to learn how to work with the energy. You have to learn how to work with them. And I'm actually in a space right now where I'm learning to work a lot with the conscious and subconscious mind, because I've been having a lot of precognitive dreams and just a lot of different like intuitive hits in my more subconscious brainwave states. But I'm having to learn how on a conscious level interpret them sometimes, or know when these things are exactly going to happen, or what they mean, or what the significance of it even is, or if I can essentially filter it out or make a free will choice to change the outcome of that particular subject or substance. Every single choice you make every single day is changing the outcome of something. So I think I want to end there for today. I hope you guys really enjoyed it. If you did, please leave me a lovely rating on whatever podcast platform you are viewing this on. That would be amazing and very much appreciative. I'm very grateful for that. And all of the ways that you guys continue to show love and support to the podcast and my other platforms and pieces of content. So for now, I just want to say thanks for tuning in to the Wonderverse. Always remember that anything is possible because you are the creator of this dream we call life. Peace.